Thank you so much for joining me today, all the way from New York
Hi.
City.
Yes. It's so exciting. It is weird when I think about it because it's essentially our wrestling sort of history circle kind of has always actually been between myself, you, and Envy.
Yeah,
So we've had a wrestling connection for a very long time, especially in the New York industry. So yeah, it's kind of cool. It's like a full circle almost.
so with all of that, with everything that you're doing with Uncanny, I want to specifically talk right now about the booking stage and what exactly goes into that, especially at a time like this where, independent wrestlers are, you have some that may be tiptoeing into the space, seeing what's out there, which shows are happening, even though we're still in this pandemic. And then I'm sure you have some that are constantly hitting you up for the next show. And you guys, from what I understand, don't run monthly shows. So what is that
No.
process exactly like for you?
It's really easy. Don't call me unless I call you. Especially now. Um, I am, right now, like obviously we're in a global pandemic, but we're also in a very important time where we're talking about social issues. One of the biggest social issues is, of course, Black Lives Matter. Black lives do matter, and they especially matter right now because, you know, COVID disproportionately affects Black and Brown people. We don't get the same treatment as others in the hospital. We don't get the same medical advice. There's a lot of different things that sort of correlate with that. And I think that having that thought process and saying Black Lives Matters and protests and stuff like that also coincides to your wrestling booking. For me, I ain't getting sick to nobody. So I'm put into a situation where like uh, I don't want to be around fans. Love you so much, but I don't want to be around fans. So it was a long conversation to even decide to do the side Uncanny Attractions umbrella shows that we do. Um, because ultimately, we love wrestling, but it's fake fighting, and this is real life, and we want to ensure that we're still sort of upholding the image of Uncanny Attractions. We want to be as safe as humanly possible. We do have projects coming up. The process has been really smart. Everyone mandatory COVID testing for everyone that is involved with anything. There's a show that I'll be announcing tomorrow. The procedure for that was mandatory COVID testing. Obviously, no fans for that show. All of the crew were wearing masks. Um, we just are trying to make sure that we put that first and foremost above anything else. And we also are aware that like when we ask people to participate, the first thing we say is, "What do you need from us to feel safe?" Because that's ultimately our goal, anyways, to make sure everyone feels safe. But especially right now in the middle of a pandemic, and as a company that does have a lot of people of color on our card. And again, that still correlates with how COVID, affects them. Uh, it's making sure everyone feels as comfortable as humanly possible, and making sure that we're not doing this just to do it. We're doing it because we really, really want to make people happy and give someone entertainment while also making sure they feel safe, the performance feels safe, and the crew feels safe. I think sometimes in wrestling it forgets the professional part, and this is a very important time where we have to make sure we're being as professional as humanly possible.
Thank you so much for saying that. And I also want to reiterate the importance that Uncanny Attractions has in the wrestling industry. I mean, we talk a lot about diversity, which I also feel is very important. You guys put on these amazing shows, and you have wrestlers coming to the shows of all different shades, ethnicities, backgrounds, sexual orientations. I think that's really important. And I wanted you to touch on that because, just like you said, in a time like this, where it's not just we're dealing with a global pandemic health wise in terms of a virus, we're dealing now with riots, we're dealing with seeing, Black Lives Matter. We just saw yesterday the NBA, what they're going through. And I think this is now becoming such a huge issue, not just in wrestling, but in the whole world, that people are starting to look up and sense and see what people of color have been dealing with and what people in the LGBTQIA community have dealt with for years. So I wanted you to touch on that and what Uncanny Attractions has in the place of wrestling as a whole, especially not just in New York, but in the whole entire industry, even post speaking out and all of these things that are happening now.
I think what's, you know, for me, I'll tell this story. I don't.
For it.
For me, wrestling. I've said this before, and I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. I love wrestling. Wrestling doesn't love me. Doesn't love Black queer people. It is what it is. So for me, I have to make, I don't have to, but I make, it's a personal choice to do so, a logical decision to really only watch and support and give my money to and my time and energy to companies that highlight marginalized groups. It's the same thing I do everything for everything else in my life. Why wouldn't I do it for something that I love, like wrestling? And it's really important for me to try as hard as I can, because sometimes it's hard, but to practice what I preach. And I to the point where at a show, Capital Wrestling, there was a show and the women's match got cut. And I had to say to one of the promoters, I said, hey, I won't come to your shows and I won't support shows if it doesn't have a women's match, period. I want more than one, but I won't do it. So like, if this thing gets cut, you need to let me know so I can make a better decision for what to do that day. And I meant it from the bottom of my heart, because it is not hard to make sure that there is representation. And yeah, there were other elements of representation for that show, but I think it's possible to do them all. And for us, Michael being pansexual, Lynn being open about her sexuality, and being a woman, me being a queer Black person, it was very important for all three of us to make sure that everything in Uncanny Attractions showcased who we were and what we wanted to see in wrestling. Um, I think it's really, really empowering for people, for anyone, to be able to watch that show, watch any one of our shows, and see so many different eclectic styles of people, see so many different eclectic styles of crew, down to the commentary, down to everything. Um, because I think ultimately, when we show the wrestling world what we can do, and we show the wrestling world that we will pay to make sure that there's diversity, it changes everything. When we talk about speaking out, like it's, and we've unfortunately had everyone's been affected by it. Not just the victims themselves, but companies who weren't aware of certain people that they were hiring, and particular past transgressions. I guess that's the politically correct way I'll say that. But it means that we make a conscious decision to make sure everyone's comfortable. Make a conscious decision to make sure everyone feels fine with the people they're sharing a locker room with. I make sure people know everyone else on the roster. I think it's important that you know everyone else on the roster. So if there is an issue, we can deal with it. Because again, there's a lot of things in professional wrestling that just aren't professional. And one of the things is, if you're grouping all of these different creatives and talents together, why wouldn't you want to make sure everyone is comfortable and safe? I don't want anyone to walk into that locker room and feel like, oh, I hate this person. I just want everyone to be happy, because ultimately, like, we don't even look at our show like a show. We look at our roster like our family. There are people who we always use and will continue to always use, that have been on every single show. And the reason why we do that is because we feel like they sort of uphold the values that Uncanny Attractions wants and has. And I think that when you actively are searching for people that are unique, that are different, that are diverse, and you also search for people that are just good, kind-hearted people, I think you get that result in the product that you produce, and I think you get that result in the locker room. There are a lot of wrestlers who say to us constantly, "I love the locker room. Everyone seems so happy. Everyone seems so, comfortable and fine." And especially having 3 different showrunners, if you don't feel comfortable with me, you can go to Lynn. You don't feel comfortable with her, you can go to Michael. There are just so many different outlets to make sure that everyone feels good, because ultimately, like, we're just here to have fun, make some money, change people's perspective in the world, and we don't have to have all that extra crap behind it. Um, but it starts in your diversity, and not only who you put in the ring, but who you have at the top and who you have in your cast and crew. It's important that our photographers are from different backgrounds. It's important that our makeup people are from different backgrounds. It's important that we actually have our shows at the House of Yes, which is one of the most all-inclusive queer venues like in New York City. Like all of these things work together to ensure that everyone feels comfortable.
So I like that you said cast and crew, because I was going to ask the question of the theatricality of your shows. I have yet to come to a Uncanny show, unfortunately, and that will change in the future once everything settles down. But I
Yep.
have heard,
Totally get it. Totally get it.
it's all good. I have heard that your shows are unlike any other wrestling shows that are out there, particularly in the independent scene, because there's a certain type of theatricality and a type of, I guess I want to say, Broadway-esque flavor to what you guys put on. So I would love for you to talk about that and what goes into the actual making of each Uncanny show, especially as you call it a cast and crew.
Especially when it comes to, I think our production value was amazing, and all of that credit 100% goes to Lynn. Lynn was friends with the owners of the House. Yes, actually, he never wanted to be involved with wrestling. I believe they were asked by several other wrestling companies if they could run there, and they said no. And Lynn spoke to them and told them what she wanted to do. We kind of look at it like wrestling on acid. Don't do drugs, kids. But the idea is that wrestling is supposed to be sort of grandiose and super big, and so we want to make sure we represent that in all of our shows. House of Yes is a very unique looking place. They have that huge disco ball. They have a human-sized cage over the bar. They have incredible lighting. So we try to make sure all of our shows don't look like wrestling shows. Now, there's nothing wrong with looking like a wrestling show. There's nothing negative looking like a wrestling show. But I got it. You're in a high school gym. Great. I'll probably go. That's cool. A company called Uncanny Attractions Drags and Dropkicks can't look like that. It just can't. So we work really, really closely with House of Yes to make sure that like the lighting is what we want. One thing that's really important to us is that our name is Drags and Dropkicks. So every show has a drag performance. We try to utilize local talent as much as humanly possible. Madam Vivian V is the resident drag queen at the House of Yes. She was at our Mania show last year. For our October show, it was the Nobodies. For our Mania show this year, that was unfortunately canceled because, COVID. We were actually using a couple of local drag queens from Tampa. I again, that adds to the cast and crew because it also adds to the idea of a family. We're using all of the artists that are in that vicinity because we want to uplift and showcase everyone. When it comes to our presentation, for example, and I think it all starts really with your poster. And our posters were done by Lauren Moran, who is an incredible artist. Everyone has probably heard of her, or if you probably own something that she has done. She especially got a lot of traction a couple of years ago when she did the picture of Becky Lynch, Bloody. But like, if you ever see that shirt, it's hers. But she's, a good friend of mine. She's, queer woman in New York City, and like, she's actually a graphic designer. Like, that's what she does for her living. That's her career as well. And so when you put all of this time and energy in just a poster, I think that transcends naturally to everything else. Because ultimately, these posters are put up all throughout Brooklyn, and we want people to walk by and be like, I have no idea what this is, but I know I want to go to it. I think making making sure that every single facet, every single part of your company screams your brand. And again, our brand is kind of don't do drugs. Our brand is kind of wrestling on acid, wrestling on diverse acid is the coolest way I can put it. Yeah, I mean, we have conversations all the time about what else can we do. You know, what else can we do to make things look cooler, to make things look bigger, to make things look gayer. Uh, and I think that there's not a lot of companies that really take a lot of time and energy in their production because they also don't have Lynn's background. You know, that's she did Super Bowl halftimes, y'all. Like
Yeah.
I have it, and I never will. So, you know, when you get to a show and here's this woman that actually has a script for everything, and we have a show rundown for everyone, so everyone knows what's happening, which entrance you're coming into, like your time already, like everything is detailed. Everyone signs a contract, like a contract. If you're getting paid, you sign a contract because we, you know, want to use the video. We want to make sure because it's not carny. Like we want to make sure you're comfortable with us using your video. We make sure we reach out to people to make sure that they feel comfortable with stuff. We try to be as professional and like a movie set or a actual production set as humanly possible. Did I answer your question?
You answered it well above and beyond.
Okay.
Thank you. That was fantastic. So I want to jump in on what you guys have planned for the near future, because it sounds like you guys have a lot of really cool stuff happening that I personally can't wait to see. So let's jump into the collaboration with IWTV. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. We just full credit actually should go to J Rose because J Rose and I were having a conversation, and he said, "Hey, do you guys want to be a part of this?" And I was like, "I didn't even think it would be an option." And apparently, they love us. They really do love us. Like, and like, they've wanted to reach out to us, and so it was just funny that like it just never happened, and we both thought that the other was too cool for each other, I think. And it's like, no, we're perfect. Yeah, so we just debuted our Mania show and one of our cinematic matches, which is Envy versus Pinky Sanchez for the Ring Light Championship. This past Wednesday, which was pretty good. It was pretty exciting. It's so exciting. I think we're the first ever show to have a drag performance on a streaming wrestling website. Like,
I think you do, which is huge.
what?
It's huge.
Like, it's crazy. And then, you know, MV has, MV's a performer. MV is a wrestler first and foremost. And I think that's definitely really important to Lynn and I. Like, I love what I do. I have a career in something else. You know, Lynn loves what she does, but she has a career in something else. MV's a wrestler. So, you know, MV did a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago now. Oh, yeah, like a month ago. He did a polycult party in a secret location in Bushwick. While not everything went perfect, the show was a success. We, you know, went a little viral. Like there was an influencer that went there, and we realized that if people saw MV and they saw me, they're gonna think it's an Uncanny show because it's just natural. So we thought about it for a little bit, and we decided to expand the umbrella of Uncanny Attractions. So this next show is technically a Uncanny Attractions presents MV Young's Polycult Party 2, which will be next Friday. Well, this Friday when this is aired. So I believe that's the 5th. I cannot tell you what time it's going to be because it's secret. I mean, I know what time it is. We'll tell you the day of. It will be on our Twitch channel, Uncanny Attraction Promotions. I believe that's our Twitch. It's Uncanny Attraction Promotions. You should be able to find it.
Oh, I'll definitely
Uncanny.
get the link. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Uncanny Promotions, but I will check that out to make sure. Yeah, you know, I'm going to be there. Lynn's going to be there. It's going to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's a lot of representation of Pittsburgh that's going to be there, which is pretty cool because Michael is from Pittsburgh. But we like that we can now do these other things. It is an outside show. I believe it's sold out. It's on 1.3 acres of land, which I had no idea how much an acre was. But apparently, it's like a
Yeah.
little less than a football field, which
Yeah.
is a lot.
It's big.
It's huge. So it's going to be in the backyard of that, like so much room for social distancing, masks required. Um, I believe I will be doing commentary. It's kind of going back and forth. We're not 100% sure. I'm a little nervous, but yeah. I mean, I think that it's a great sort of it's a great thing to be under the umbrella of Uncanny Attractions because Michael books these shows and it is still very much so a representation of what we believe in. So tons of queer talent, tons of people of color, tons of women, and that's ultimately what we're here for. Now, Uncanny Attractions, Drags and Dropkicks. This would have aired a couple of days after it's been officially announced. We have a show. It is a fully cinematic show. We realized that the safest way to actually do a show is cinematic. So all the wrestlers have been COVID tested. I had gotten all the results. We, the crew, were wearing masks the entire time. And obviously there's no fans, so it's like 8 hours to do one match. It's a long day. But yeah, so it's called Uncanny Attractions. The Wrestlers Take Manhattan, which is of course based off of the Muppets Take Manhattan, because it's a cinematic movie. The poster is badass. It's Lauren. It's a play on the Muppets Take Manhattan poster. It's beautiful. Her work is so beautiful. It like makes me cry, like how talented she is. But it's a full cinematic show, and there's only 4 matches, but like we have a lot of cool surprises that are going to be in between the matches. And they're all very, very different matches. Very different. Some are about a quest for love. Some are about a continuation of October show. Some are about our love for video games, and one is about film noir and the world of movies. It's it's really good. That will be September 9th. And September 9th, 10 p.m., IWTV. The best thing is, if you did not know, wrestling companies, we actually get paid based off of how many views are done on a show. And I hope you all watch live because we're going to be tweeting. Everyone's going to tweet. Watch from beginning to end. You have to watch from beginning to end. And all of the proceeds and for all the views that we make from September 9th to September 16th, 100% is being donated to Save Our Stages, which is a company that helps a lot of the liberal arts, who, of course, a lot of people have lost a lot of money because of the pandemic. And us, we're a representation of liberal arts because it's literally liberal arts. Wrestling is art, and yay. And Trans Woman of Color Collective, based out of DC, because I don't know whether or not everyone who's watching this knows this, but you wouldn't be able to do anything in the world if it wasn't for Black trans women. Period. Period. Poop. That's on periodic table. So 100% of those proceeds go to it. You have to watch from beginning to end so that we can donate as much as humanly possible. We'll be very transparent about how much we donate because that's what we do here. We're not like other companies. No shade. But yeah, I think one of the things that have been really interesting about this time is that there are a lot of wrestlers who have very kind of fallen off, I would like to say, because what else you got, baby? You got a body slam. What else you got? And I think it corresponds with like how we book people, because there are a lot of people who have asked to be in the show, and unfortunately they won't be booked on the show. It's not a knock to them. It's what else do you bring to the table? And creativity and character work is very important to us because wrestling is a variety show. And I think during this pandemic, I think that you've seen the people who are creative and know how to utilize their other strengths to their benefit. MV is a perfect example. Danhausen has been killing it. Nick Iggy from the Carnies has been killing it. Faye Jackson has been killing it online. Effie always on Twitch now. Like these are these are ways that you can make sure that you stay creative and in people's minds. And I think for us in Uncanny Attractions, safety is paramount for ourselves and for obviously our cast and our crew and for our fans. And ultimately, the safest show, like we are practicing as many safety protocols as humanly possible. But the safest way to actually do a show is doing cinematic shows. And I don't think a lot of people have thought to themselves, like, well, how much content can I put out? And honestly, you could put out a lot of content. It takes some time, it takes some work. But I'm so pleased with the show. At this current point, I have seen all the matches. I'm setting up the show flow myself. I've seen all the matches except one, which is still being edited. And they're so different. Like there's something for everyone, which again, that's what Uncanny Attractions is about. There's something for everyone to enjoy. Like you're gonna like one of the matches. You're gonna like something that's in between. And ultimately, if you don't like it, that's okay. Still watch it from beginning to end so we can donate some money. Like ultimately, like the most important thing about this show is we want to give as much money as we can to charities that actually mean a lot to us, and this is a great opportunity to do so. But I'm very excited. I cannot wait for people to see. This has been 2 months of planning and getting things together, and it's been. I'm tired.
I know
I'm
you
very tired.
a million jobs, but
I'm very tired.
you're kicking
And I can't wait to sleep. It's going to be really good when I get to do that. And I can't wait. I can't wait for everyone to see this labor of love that, I was blessed to be able to write 2 of the matches. MV wrote the other 2. Yeah, and we got to work with some incredible talent. New Fear City crew who puts out incredible content. They did the MV and Pinky Sanchez match. They're doing 2 of the matches and editing the full thing together. And shout out to GoPro Wrestling who did one of my matches. GoPro. GoPro are amazing. I'll send you their match if you want to see
Please,
it.
I absolutely
It's really good. It's so good. But yeah, man, I'm so pleased and I'm so happy because like wrestling, this is the thing about wrestling. Like wrestling is so scared to evolve. Like it's the same reason why we have all the same matches, but we have all these matches with the same like white guy with black tights and like long hair, and that's just boring. Like, and like yeah, you can come back to wrestling, but you can only like have so many of the same people. So a lot of these cards are the same people just regurgitated in different styles, and it's like let's do something different. Like step your game up. Like let's do something interesting. And if people don't like it, all right, at least we tried to do something different, and I think that's better than just going by status quo. Because if I'm going by status quo, then I don't want to do it. To be honest, like that's boring to me. Like it's wrestling is magic. Wrestling is art. So let's make some art.
I love that, and I agree. Wrestling is
That's a soundbite.
It really is. I am putting that as a quote because that what you just said was magical in and of itself. And I mean, I want to ask you: did you anticipate Uncanny growing the way that it had? I mean, it's only been around for 2 years, and I
We've only had 4 shows.
Years, just about. Yeah, exactly. And I was doing more research yesterday. I was like, wait, you guys only really had 4 shows. It feels like it's had 50.
It really does. Our first show was December 2018. Then we did a Mania show in April of 2019. Then we did a Halloween show of October 2019. Then we're going to do a Mania show this year. That obviously got canceled. So technically, the cinematic show is technically our 4th actual show. Should be our 5th, but it's our fourth actual show. And then now we have two polycoats, about to have two polycoats under our belt too. Um, it's weird because I get asked about Uncanny a lot, and like people talk about it a lot. A lot of wrestlers who I would have never thought were interested in it, like have reached out, and I'm just like, what the hell? And I think ultimately, it doesn't matter. There are some companies that literally have a show every 2 weeks. Knock yourself out. First of all, we all got jobs and made money. But second of all, I don't want to go to anything that's every 2 weeks, especially when it comes to indie wrestling. Like that type of oversaturation, like it's hard to feel. It's hard to feel, and it's hard for me to feel anticipated. I don't know the correct word I'm looking for. Anticipatory. That might be a word. I might have made it up. Come on, Webster's, figure it out. Um, but I want. It's not something I want to look forward to if it's every single week, because then I'm just kind of like, all right, cool. And I love wrestling, and I think there's something a little bit more special. Battle Club Pro does it as well. They only have 3 or 4 shows a year, and we want to get to the point, obviously, where we do more shows than that. But like, it could be an every other month thing. It could be 6 months. I mean, 6 shows a year, or it could be 4 shows a year. I think 4 shows is a good amount. But we've made like more of an impact than I would have ever thought in such a small amount of time. And I think, again, that's a testament to our locker room. That's a testament to our professionalism. I tell people, I'm a stylist. I don't want to work for WWE. I don't want to work for AEW. I don't want to travel in a car and go, 10 hours to this place. No, I'm a stylist. Like, this is what I do as my second job, so to speak. But like, I'm going to have different thought processes about how things should look, because I haven't been in 50 million locker rooms the same way Lynn has. And I know wrestling wants to gatekeep so much, and it's like, we don't like outside people in wrestling. Well, you know what? A lot of wrestling looks all the same. So why don't we get outside people in wrestling, and maybe we can do something. Again, wrestling is art. Maybe we can do something a little bit more creative. And I think that's why people are drawn to us, because they're just seeing things they never saw before, and a light they never saw before, and a style they never thought of before. Because again, what's the point if it's all the same? What's the point if it's all status quo? That's boring. Let's be boring. I don't want to be boring. I'm wearing beige, for goodness sake.
Let me ask you, I just have a few more questions left.
Sure.
I would love to know your predictions on where you think wrestling will be once the dust settles, once we're getting more back out there in the independent scene and even in the pro scene. There's so many things happening, even though it feels like there might not be a lot happening behind the scenes. But what do you predict? Where do you see wrestling in even just a year or 2 years' time?
I expect to actually see cinematic matches be like more of a norm, and a lot of wrestling companies. Not every show, but it not being a special occasion thing. I see the landscape of wrestling changing by being more diverse, and I mean that because I think right now what's happening. Yes, I know Twitter isn't the real world, and I mean that in a way of people yelling at someone on Twitter or a wrestling company on Twitter doesn't necessarily mean that like changes are gonna happen in that particular company. But I think wrestling fans are realizing how much impact they actually have on indie wrestling. Not to harp on people who weren't very nice to us. But I remember one person specifically just saying, like, you are a fan and you know nothing about wrestling, and you won't be a part of it for very long. And therein lies the problem, is that, yes, most fans, let me rephrase that. Yes, there are fans who don't know what they want, and their opinion changes. But when fans are talking about things like diversity, accessibility for disabled, fans who just want to get to the show. I just want to get to the show. and they're met with a lot of this aggressive tone that I've seen a lot from the people who work for companies, uh, that's going to stop. Like it is, because it's going to get to the point where this stuff is definitely going to um, overlay and get and be actually brought to attention when you go to wrestling companies. There are people who are now realizing, oh, maybe I don't buy this show because there's no women on the card. There was a show just last week. Don't want to say the name of the show. I enjoy a lot of the people on the show. Um, Not a single women's match. Shouldn't be the norm. I think there are wrestlers that nowadays are realizing their own worth, um, especially black wrestlers, especially queer wrestlers, especially women. Um, but I also think so in the way that, I don't think wrestlers realize, especially big indie names, like how much power they hold. If you're booked for a show, and I honestly believe this should be the way it works. If you're booked for a show, you should see the whole card. That everyone should know what the whole card is. So you know who you're working with, and if you're working with someone, especially with speaking out, it's important to know. Um, but if you see yourself on a card and you realize there are no black people on that card, there are no people of color on that card, there are no women on that card, there are no gender nonconforming people on that card, there are no queer people at all on that card, you say to the promoter, hey, I love to do your show, but we need to change something about your card. We need more diversity. You can ask for that. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think wrestlers need to start realizing you should be denying bookings that don't have your brothers and sisters on there. Because the same way that we would, and I saw some people get a little weirded out when someone suggested that. They're like, me not take the booking? And like, they were African American talent. But you would want the same done to you. Like, I won't go to shows. I won't promote a show that doesn't have that diversity. You shouldn't want to be on those shows. And when wrestlers start making that impact, and when fans start realizing how powerful their money is, I think wrestling is going to change so quickly over the next year, because a lot of companies are like ignoring a lot of the speaking out stuff and just or they're like, here's 4 black people. You happy? And they're realizing that this Band-Aid isn't going to work. People don't have time for this Band-Aid. People want a solution. You can either be a part of the solution or you can be a continuation of the problem. And people are going to pass you by. Doesn't matter how popular it is. Doesn't matter how cool stars you have. And for me, it is very, I look and I pay attention. Oh man, I really like that wrestler. But they're always on cards without queer people. Always on cards without people of color. Do I want that person to work for Uncanny? Because it doesn't seem they fight for anything. Because I think that if you're opinionated on Twitter, I think that if you're opinionated in your life, you need to be opinionated in your job and make sure there's actual inclusion. The silence is complicity. And so we've got to work together to get this thing, to get it all changed. And I think we can. And I think people, again, are seeing that they've got a lot of power. They wield a lot of power. Like, what's wrong with changing the way others look at wrestling, and what's wrong with changing the status quo? And it's going to be hard. It's going to be frustrating. You might lose a couple of bookings. No, I know it sucks. But there is no better time to do that than right now, in the middle of a pandemic, when so many wrestling companies can't even operate, and so many wrestlers can't even work. Now is the time for change. Let's do it. Let's implement it so that in a year, we don't have to have situations like speaking out. We don't have to have situations like every other day talking about, the lack of black talent. We don't have to have conversations about why there's no women on the show. Let's do it now, today, so that in a year, it is better for these young men and women and gender nonconforming people who are coming up in the business. They don't have to worry about this. Let's fight the fight so that they can be better off.
That was profound, Darnell.
It was really good.
Don't ruin the moment. That was that laughing
But I mean
aside,
it.
that was profound. It was
I
profound.
mean it. It's so easy. I love wrestling so much. And I
And
just don't watch that doesn't represent me. And I tell promoters, I'm not going to go to this. I won't represent this. I won't promote this. I won't have anything to do with it. I have to tell my friends, man, that show you look on looks cool, but like,
so
okay.
the last topic that I want to get into is the fact that you've had so many amazing names on your cards in such a short span of time, but also you've only had about 4 shows, technically the 5. But your cards have introduced talent such as Effie, you've had Billy Dixon, AEW Sunny Kiss, Ronnie Nicole, Big Swole, MV Young, of course, Killian McMurphy, Hot Dog Starks. I mean, it's just the amount of talent and names that you've had is phenomenal. And I just wanted to ask you, what would be your dream match to see at Uncanny that you haven't booked yet?
Um, oh, oh, uh, oh.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy, I enjoy that our cards are a good mix of, if you really sit down and you think about it, it's very New York City heavy. Like, and that's a deliberate choice. We are a New York City promotion. We all live in New York City. And we utilize a lot of New York talent, and we use a lot of Pittsburgh talent, so that connection for MV. And then I love that we use a lot of talent from the South, which is almost a connection to me because people might not know this, but I was born in the South. I'm from Virginia. I'm from Norfolk, Virginia. Um, but I want to say that. I guess I'll say that. There were a couple of matches that I've had in my head that I really, really wanted. One of them being Billy Dixon versus Eddie Kingston. Because I think the juxtaposition of 2 men, both born in New York City, both, from like whatever the word ghetto means, and who have been a part of wrestling, but, both people of color, one being a queer man. I think that juxtaposition is really interesting. And I think that Billy Dixon's one of the best promo talkers actually out there, and he doesn't get enough credit for like his work with his way with words. He's got the gift of gab. So I would love to see them wrestle. It's still possible because AEW does allow their talent to work. I also Candy was supposed to be on our Mania show, Candy Lee, from New Zealand. There's a match I've already told her that I wanted. I will say it. I am very friendly with a former WWE diva. We met a couple of years ago at Mania, and like we keep in contact. We see each other every single time for Mania. Like, we're pretty cool. She has retired, and I would love her to come out of retirement for wrestling. I think she did a match like a year ago. Wrestling Candy Lee. That would be Victoria. So I would love to see Victoria wrestle Candy Lee, because I think Candy, right?
Oh my God.
Right? Candy Lee is the definition of a diva, and Victoria. Victoria really is very much so she's a queer icon for me. And I remember, I think it was the second day we were hanging out because we were staying in the same hotel. So every single night we would just all hang out in the hotel room and like get like wasted. And there were people who were saying very negative things to me, while also still trying to be cool with Lisa. And Lisa's response was to walk off. I don't think I ever told this story. And Lisa was like, what's going on, Darnell? And I was like, oh no, they're just they were German. Oh, let me go back. Okay. Let me set the scene. So we're all like hanging out in the hotel. There was a group of German people. One of them was kind of friendly with us, and we were hanging out with us. And he was very nice. And whenever him and I would talk, they would insinuate that he was my boyfriend by calling me Spurs in German, because obviously I don't speak German. I mean, you never know. I could be bilingual, but yeah. And he told me about it, and he like felt really bad about it. He was like, I'm really sorry. And he told Lisa. And then they kept trying to talk to Lisa, and Lisa's response is like the best thing. She was like, "No," and it started yelling at them in the hotel. Are you talking about my friend? And it was like the most amazing. This is like the second day I met her. Like the first day, we ended up hanging out like the whole day. Went to a wrestling show together. Like, I ended up getting her. Like, she sat with us at Mania. Like, it was so much fun, and like like it didn't even cross her mind to just be a decent human being.
Hmm.
And she is like that's what I want in an ally. And I think that she would be perfect at a place like Uncanny Attractions. Uh, and I think it would be really powerful to see her wrestle Candy Lee. But that's really my number one match that I want. And WrestleMania is in LA next year. Lisa lives in West Hollywood. Um, Hopefully we get to go. We never know. But that is my number one match I want. Actually, my number two match would also be. It was supposed to be the main event for our Mania show this year. Effie versus Sunny Kiss. They have never wrestled. They haven't been in the same ring
Surprised me.
together.
I was
They
shocked.
haven't had any physical contact together
Yeah.
ever. And I like all three of those matches are matches that could potentially be on a Mania LA Uncanny Attraction show.
Absolutely.
But like that's a thing. Like it corresponds like when sorry, side tangent, but like when Chris Hero was released, everyone kept naming these books. Well, I'll say his name, but everyone's like, oh, I want him and David Starr. I want him and this guy and this white guy and this white guy. And I'm like, yo, why aren't you being innovative? Why aren't you thinking of something new? I want Chris Hero versus Mako. I want Chris Hero versus Mercedes Martinez. That's what I want. And I think like that type of, Billy versus Eddie is, no one would have ever thought about that. But that beautiful juxtaposition of the way their lives have been very similar paths, but like while being very different is great. Candy versus a former WWE diva. That's great. Effie versus Sunny. Why wouldn't two of the biggest stars, and like biggest queer stars, biggest stars in indie wrestling and like major wrestling, why wouldn't they be wrestling each other? Um, I don't have time for boring white guy main events.
Well, you have an amazing mind for booking and for business from what I've seen so far. Even if you don't feel like it, Darnell, the fact of just how big Uncanny has gotten in the span of 3 years is a testament to what Envy Young, things are changing. Things are getting slowly progressive. People are waking up, and you guys are at the forefront of that. So thank you for keeping up the good fight.
Thank you. I remember being asked to do a podcast back in March 2016, and that podcast honestly has gotten me all of the opportunities I've received, because very quickly we realized that people liked it when I was talking, and they liked they hadn't seen they haven't seen a queer black promoter. They hadn't seen a queer black voice, for a lot of wrestling stuff. Now it's a lot more common, but back then it just wasn't. And that got me my opportunity at Capital, which got me my opportunities at Battle Club Pro, which got me my opportunities here at Uncanny. And 10-year-old me, when I started watching wrestling, would have never thought that I would be in this situation. And it is very much so a group effort. It is very much so a team effort. I couldn't have done this without Envy, and couldn't have done it without Lynn either. So thank you. And then I love seeing the work that you're doing in wrestling.
Be consistent. That's all it is. So thank you, Darnell.
Be consistent.
Yeah. So last thoughts, if there's anything else you want to reiterate in terms of what's coming up, you want to throw out more dates, your socials, all of that good stuff, this is the time.
So this Friday, September 5th, I'm pretty sure it's the 5th. Oh, it is the 5th, definitely. I remember, because I'm leaving on the 4th. September 5th will be Uncanny Attractions presents MV Young's Polycope Party 2 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I believe it is already sold out. It will be live on Twitch, Uncanny Promotions on Twitch. We will release the actual start date like the day before or the day. It's a secret. There's a reason why it's a secret. But stay tuned. You know when shows usually start, y'all. Like, yeah, logical thinking. Then September 9th at 10 p.m. IWTV, live on IWTV. It's our first new content on IWTV. It is Uncanny Attractions Volume 4, Drags and Dropkicks, The Wrestlers Take Manhattan. Fully cinematic show, fully cinematic experience. Don't forget, from September 9th to September 16th, every single bit that you watch, make sure you watch from beginning to end. All of the profits that we make from that, we will be donating to charity. It's very important that you watch from beginning to end. We want to give back as much money as humanly possible to Trans Women of Color Collective and Save Our Stages. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Uncanny_Attract. Also on Facebook and Uncanny Attractions. Most of the updates are typically on Twitter. It's just like the easiest way to get stuff out. You can follow me on Twitter if you don't already at DinoLicious. I'm really annoying on Twitter. Want to forewarn you. Make sure you're comfortable with that. If you thought this was a lot, just wait. Yeah, I'm so happy to have done this with you. You are definitely one of my favorite humans and someone that I would do anything that you asked for me. And I'm very glad that you've been a part of my wrestling journey and vice versa. So thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, likewise, Darnell, thank you for being a part of this. It is an honor to interview you because I know we've been on the flip side when we first started and you were interviewing me, and now it's just
yeah, it's crazy.
Full circle. So thank you so much. Yeah.
One last thing, very important. Black trans lives matter. There you go.
Amen. Amen. And thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. Show up if you can to support all of the amazing things that Uncanny Attractions is doing, as well as just wrestling in general. We are all here for the one singular cause, and that is to entertain each other, but to also support each other and just be an ally. So thank you so much. Please support. Thank you, Darnell, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.